Maria Pritchard was halfway through her second week back at Wetumawana station when the sheep began to sparkle. The first specks appeared as faint, opalescent flecks on the backs of a small mob that had just come down from the tussock hills. At dawn, with mist rolling off the Clutha River, the colours looked like dew. By mid-morning sunlight, the flecks glowed teal and magenta, tracing spidery veins through the fleece. Her Aunt June, whose life revolved around a stubborn optimism and endless mugs of gumboot tea, waved it off. Probably pollen, love. The manuka's thick this season. But Maria was a fibre artist, trained to notice pigments, saturations, undertones. She pinched a tuft, rubbed it between her fingers, and felt the faint tack of something synthetic. Pollen did not glimmer like nail varnish. That afternoon, she brought the sample to the shearers' quarters, where a low table hosted chipped mugs, half a chessboard, and Luke Thompson, Wetumawana's head shearer and part-time conspiracy theorist. Luke angled his phone torch over the wool. Looks like UV reactive dye. City kids use it for nightclub tattoos. Maria lifted a brow. Since when do yous chase DJ sets? Luke grinned. You've never seen the Saturday night paddock raves, Miss Auckland? She ignored him and tucked the sample into a Ziploc bag. If someone's been near our sheep with chemicals, Aunt June needs to know. Yet the next day, June was preoccupied. A prize merino ram, cowrie, valued more than the farmhouse roof, had vanished from the breeding pen. Gate closed, lock untouched, tracks inconclusive. The local constable, Ben Ratahi, drove out in a sputtering Hilux, took notes, and promised a follow-up. 2 mysteries in 48 hours. Maria's city friends pictured rural life as tranquil, but Wetumawana's rhythm was closer to improvisational jazz, pleasant melodies abruptly upstaged by discordant bleats. That evening, Maria carried the dyed fleece to the woolshed's kitchenette, flicked off the ceiling light, and switched on the UV lamp she used to inspect stains in vintage textiles. Under ultraviolet, the wool blazed neon. An irregular rectangle, no bigger than a postcard, emerged where the colours converged. She fetched her phone, held the camera toward it out of idle habit, and the screen pinged. A QR code. The link rerouted through strange subdomains before arriving at a login page. Black Rumen Exchange. Beneath the heading was a looping banner of stylized DNA spirals. Maria's stomach shrank. Sheep colorants, invisible to the casual eye, had been used to embed a digital calling card on a live animal. Whoever scanned that code in broad daylight would discover a clandestine marketplace, and perhaps their next illicit purchase. She snapped screenshots, then hunted for Luke. He stood by the drafting race, rolling a cigarette. Told you it was nightclub stuff, he said, though the smirk slid when she showed him the images. Illegal genetics auctions, he muttered. That's not Saturday night mischief. He described rumours, embryos mailed in thermos flasks, unlicensed CRISPR edits to produce ultra-heavy fleeces, lambs designed to mature in half the time. New Zealand's biosecurity laws were strict, but black markets always sprouted in the cracks. Maria reported her findings to Ben, who listened with an expression that mixed concern and amusement. You're saying smugglers turned our sheep into living billboards. Only visible under UV, she corrected. Technically, they hid the ads in plain sight. Ben ran a hand over his close-cropped hair. I'll call MPI in the morning. Ministry for Primary Industries. Heavy hitters. He promised discreet inquiries, then drove away, tires scattering gravel. Night fanned out over the high country. Maria tried to sleep, but thoughts skittered. If someone infiltrated the flock to spray paint DNA adverts, what else might they do? Siphon semen from champion rams? Swap ear tags and spirit animals away? She got up before dawn, pulled on gumboots, and marched to the circular yards. A drone buzzed overhead, blinking red. It pivoted, dipped, and arrowed south, vanishing beyond macrocarpa shelter belts. By breakfast, she'd decided snooping was safer with company. Luke offered himself, albeit with melodramatic flair. Every Nancy Drew needs a Ned Nickerson. Together, they canvassed potential suspects. 1. Angus Macready, owner of neighbouring Glenlock Station, had coveted Wetumoana's bloodlines for years. 2. Annika Rhodes, a chemical supply rep who'd visited last month, claiming to sell eco-friendly scour solutions. 3. Saskia de Vries, Aunt June's new farm manager, hire from South Africa, whose resume sparkled as fiercely as her citron nails. Angus was easy to check. He appeared that afternoon unannounced, face thundercloud grey. 2 of his own stud hoggets had gone missing overnight. So had a water scooter from his son's boat shed. "Bloody thieves," he growled. "If you lot see any unfamiliar trailers, yell." His bitterness felt genuine. Mariah mentally downgraded him from prime suspect to aggrieved neighbour. Annika Rhodes had left promotional leaflets behind. Mariah called the number. It rang out. She tried email, bounce back. When she searched the address, the building in Christchurch housed a closed fish and chip shop. Dead end, or rather, ghost beginning. That left Saskia. Saskia glided through the homestead like a queen on holiday, sunglasses propped in her blonde hair, suede boots unscuffed by mud. She devoured spreadsheets, yet claimed ignorance of a post driver. Aunt June adored her. The woman's a weapon with logistics. After dinner, Mariah knocked on the converted shearer's cabin where Saskia lived. A faint chemical smell seeped from inside, sharp and plasticky, like new pool toys warmed by sun. "You working on something?" Mariah asked. "Just nail varnish remover." Saskia smiled, teeth starched white. "My manicure chipped." Yet the polish Mariah had smelled on the sheep had carried a similar acetone tang. Small coincidence, but there it was. Later, Mariah and Luke snuck to the machinery shed, where Saskia stored inventory. Between drums of sheep dip and mineral lick stood 3 unlabelled cartons. Inside, aerosol cans wrapped in black plastic. The cans had no brand, only QR motif stenciled near the nozzle. Luke exhaled softly. "I think we've found our nightclub." A shadow fell across the doorway. Saskia's voice froze them. "Product tampering isn't wise." She switched on the overhead light. Mariah clenched one of the cans like a baguette club. "You knew these were here," she accused. "I knew they'd be safer under my control than Angus Macready's." She stepped closer. "I took this job to stop rural theft, not enable it." Her eyes glittered. But with what? Defiance? Bluff? Saskia explained she'd tracked a South African biotech ring that specialised in designer livestock genes. They'd infiltrated New Zealand's merino industry. The ring used dyed QR codes to contact buyers without email trails. Saskia claimed she worked undercover for an international agricrime task force. Luke coughed. "If that's true, where's your badge?" She produced a laminated card from her back pocket. Global Food Integrity Network. The logo looked official, though Maria had never heard of it. Saskia said she'd shipped the paint to Wetumoana as bait. She'd hoped criminals would come retrieve it, thereby revealing themselves. "But someone got impatient and sprayed your sheep," she admitted. "I didn't authorize that." Mariah studied her. The story fit some facts, yet clashed with others. Undercover officers rarely kept evidence lying in open crates. And why risk the station's prize stock? Ben arrived moments later, summoned by Luke's covert text. Saskia repeated her narrative. Ben's expression remained politely unmoved. He suggested everyone sleep and meet in daylight with MPI investigators. Mariah barely reached her pillow before new turmoil erupted. Angus's farmhand phoned June. A truck without plates was seen loading sheep on a remote gravel access called Devil's Elbow, land that skirted both properties. The Hilux convoyed toward the back country. Ben driving, Mariah shotgun, Luke and Aunt June bumped in the tray. Moonlight silvered Mataguri thickets. Ahead, red taillights winked where the road funneled between schist bluffs. The truck halted at an improvised pen. Silhouettes moved. 3 figures hustling woolly bodies up a ramp. Ben killed headlights, radioed for backup that might arrive in an hour if lucky. Rural policing often meant do-it-yourself. They crept closer on foot. Mariah recognized Annika Rhodes by her cropped ginger hair. The second silhouette, tall, athletic, was Saskia. The third wore a balaclava, but had Luke's rangy stance. Mariah's heart plunged. She glanced beside her. Luke crouched in real time, jaw slack. The third thief wasn't him. Ben whispered, "Stay, no heroics," then rounded a manuka clump. He lit his torch and shouted, "Police! Hands up!" Chaos tilted the night. Sheep bolted, bleating. Annika knocked over a drum of dye. Neon liquid splashed her jeans. The balaclavaed thief leapt the ramp, sprinted uphill. Saskia froze, arms half raised, gaze darting between Mariah and Ben. Luke tackled Annika with surprising finesse. She hit dirt with a cuss. Mariah, utensils limited to a phone and stubbornness, pursued the runner. She scrambled over a stile, boots skidding on shale. The thief's balaclava snagged a gorse branch and tore free, revealing a shock of ginger dreadlocks. Not Luke, but Angus's teenage son, Rory Macready. Rory stumbled, and Mariah seized his jacket. They both fell, sliding to rest among tussocks. "I needed money," Rory sobbed. "Dad's broke. Those people pay in Bitcoin." Back at the truck, Ben secured zip ties around wrists. Annika glared at Saskia. "Thought you were on board," she hissed. "I was infiltrating you," Saskia retorted. "Liar, you pitched the drone plan." Ben herded everyone into headlights and demanded plain explanations. The unravelling took an hour, stitched by grudging confessions. Annika fronted the ring's South Island operation, supplying dye and scanning sheep at agricultural shows to connect with wealthy breeders seeking off-book genetics. Rory served as inside muscle, luring stock into pens. He volunteered Corey, the missing merino ram, which currently languished in a holding paddock on Glenlock scrubland. Saskia had begun as ring member, but flipped several weeks ago when she learned the next phase involved gene-editing embryos to produce myostatin null lambs, animals so muscular they might suffer health defects. She contacted the Global Food Integrity Network, a legitimate watchdog body, and agreed to be their mole. However, she'd omitted to tell June or Mariah for fear word would leak. Mariah believed parts of the tale, the rest would sift out in court. For now, exhausted relief replaced suspicion. By sunrise, MPI trucks clogged the homestead driveway. Technicians swabbed fleeces, boxed aerosols, collected drones, and quarantined Corey. A veterinarian pronounced the ram shaken but sound. June brewed industrial amounts of coffee. Mariah perched at the kitchen table while Ben drafted statements. "I suppose you'll retreat to Auckland after this excitement," Aunt June said gently. Mariah stared through the window toward hills glowing peach under first light. A breeze rippled grass like wool on the hoof. Actually, I'd like to stay. Someone needs to design safer ear tag encryption. Luke snorted. From fiber artist to cyber shepherd. Why not both? Mariah grinned. Inspiration already blossomed. Natural plant dyes mixed with micro-encapsulated bioluminescence to mark authentic Wetumoana fleece, while foiling counterfeit QR graffiti. Cozy crimes would struggle to hide in colours she created. Ben closed his notebook. Remember to keep the constable informed, preferably before midnight chases next time. No promises. She sipped tea, warmth curling her fingers. Evil had lurked in neon pigments, yet goodness persisted in everyday textures. Lanolin scent, cousin's laughter drifting from the veranda, the low hum of ewes settling in fresh paddocks. On Wetumoana Station, mysteries might rise like fog, but so did solutions, drawn out by community, a torch beam, and a woman who understood that every strand of wool could carry a story.